Hey, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to crochet our men's cobblestone cardigan, and I will be working on the large size in this tutorial. I will be using Mary Maxim Ragg worsted weight yarn for this tutorial, and I'm using the color denim for this pattern. And we can take a look. It has 216 yards on a 100-gram ball, and it is 100% acrylic yarn. So now I wanted to show you my new case from Furls. So I have this case filled up with the hooks that I'm using. So these are their gold streamline hooks. I have some matte and I have some of the smooth glossier finish as well. But for this pattern, we're going to be working with the 6 and the 5.5 millimeter. And if you're interested in the cases, they do have a nice little pocket where you can add your stitch markers, your needles, your scissors, other items in there. And this is genuine leather. So I will be starting with a slip knot and putting that on my 6 millimeter crochet hook. And we're going to begin with a chain of 37. So I've worked out 37 chains. I'm now going to turn. You could just work in the back loop of the chain, but I like to turn and work through the back bumps of the chain. When you look at it from an angle, you can kind of see those little humps that pop up. So that's what we're going to be working into. So the second chain from the hook will work a single crochet and work single crochets in each chain across, working through that back bump of the chain. So we'll end up with 36 single crochet worked across. Okay, so here is that first row. So we've worked across 36 single crochet. Now we're going to chain 1 and turn. And my first stitch is going to be the increase stitch. We're going to work 3 double crochet. And what I'm going to do now is I have 4 stitch markers. We will be adding markers for the increase stitch. So the stitch that's in the center of the 3 will be the stitch we increase each time. So we're going to add the marker to the second double crochet. And then we're going to work the sleeve section, which will be 6 stitches. So we'll work across 6 double crochet. And then our next stitch will be our increase, which will be separating the sleeve from the back. So we're going to work 3 double crochet, and then we're going to add a stitch marker in the center stitch of the increase. Now for our back, we're going to work across 20 stitches. So 20 double crochet. I've worked across 20, so the next stitch will be the increase. So we'll work 3 double crochet in the same stitch. And then I will add my marker to the center stitch. Now we're coming to the next sleeve. So we'll work across 6 stitches. Okay, and then the last, this is a little messy. I pulled from the center of the ball, and sometimes it just comes out a little bit tangly, but I'm just going to work through it as I go. So the last stitch will be the increase stitch, so we'll work 3. And I will mark the center stitch. So now in the pattern, I do have a row by row chart just to help keep you on track with the stitch count. So if you look at that chart, it's in the written pattern, you'll see the front will show 1 stitch, the sleeve will show 8. So even though we worked across 6, we're including those increased stitches. So if you count, you should have 8. The back has our 20 stitches plus 1 increase here, 1 increase here. So we actually have 22. Our next sleeve, we have 8, and then we have 1 stitch for the front, and then you'll see the increased spaces are 4. So we now have a total of 44 stitches for this row, which will be row 1. The first row is the setup. So you can follow along with that chart to help you just keep on track of your stitches. And now we're on to row 2 and we'll chain 1. So another thing I want to mention, which I showed in the women's tutorial, is we are going to be making the back and sleeve sections, the stitches a little bit taller for the first 5 rows. Then the entire pattern will switch to half double crochets. So when we're working our front panel or our front sections, they're going to be half double, but then the increase, the sleeve, the back, the sleeve will all be in double crochet for that first 5 rows. It's just going to help the cardigan sit a little bit better across the shoulder. It's going to make the back a little bit higher than the front, and you'll just find overall that the fit is a little bit nicer. So what we'll do then is we're going to work 2 half double crochet in the first stitch. So we will be increasing the front on this row. So this will alter a little bit from the woman's pattern. We will be alternating the increases on this front panel, but this row is an increased row. So we are adding 2 half double crochet for the front, and then we'll do the increase in the marked stitch, which is double crochets. So we'll keep all of the increases doubles to be consistent. So 3 doubles will be worked in this stitch. Then you can mark the center stitch again. So if you go to the chart that we're following along with, the front should now be 3 stitches, which is our increase plus this stitch. Now we're going to work across and double crochet to the marker. Okay, and then at the marker, we'll do 3 double crochet. Add the marker back to the center stitch so we stay on track. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll work across double crochets, add my 3 doubles in the marker, work across, 3 double crochets in the marker, and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, so I have worked my increase. I've already added my marker, and then we have one stitch. We're going to do 2 half double crochet in that last stitch. Okay, so that is row 2. So row 2, we now have 3, our increase, 10 for the sleeve, our increase, 24 for the back, 10, and 3. Okay, so a total of 54 stitches for this row. Now what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to alternate, we'll alternate between doing an increase in the first stitch and not doing an increase. So this will just make that front panel not increase as drastically. So if we increased every stitch, it will drastically sort of come to the join, or where we have to stop increasing. And if we do every other, it's just a little bit more gradual. So now we'll chain 1 turn, and when we do that non-increase row, we're going to just do 1 half double crochet in the first stitch. Then we'll work a half double crochet in the next 2, and then we do our increase, and we do all double crochets for the increase. 1, 2, 3. So we add our marker, and then you can see for this row, we've only gone up 1 stitch here rather than 2. So we now have 4 stitches if you look at the chart for row 3. Okay, so we're going to work this the same all the way across. We're just going to do our doubles, increasing in the markers, and I'll meet you back up at the end again. Okay, so I'm coming to the end. I have already done the increase, put my marker. So we have 3 stitches remaining, and we'll do a half double crochet into each of those stitches. So 1, 2, 3. So now this row, we have a total of 62 stitches if you count each section. And if it helps you remember, we will be not doing an increase on our odd number rows, and we'll be increasing on the even rows. So we're going to chain 1, turn, and this time we'll do 2 half double crochet in that first stitch. Then we'll work across our front in half double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when we do the increase, we'll have 6 stitches for this front. So double crochet, three stitches, and we'll mark. So you'll continue all the way across, do the increase as normal, finish off with your half double crochets with 2 in the final stitch. The next row will be an odd number row, so we won't do the increase. So we'll just go from 6 to 7 stitches. And now once you get to row 6, I don't want you doing any more double crochet. You will only do half double through the entire pattern. So it's just the first 5 rows that you start double crochets at this increase, finish at this increase, but starting at row 6, all half double crochet for the rest of the pattern. Okay, so now what you're going to do, follow along with the chart and the written instructions, but you're going to continue in this every other row increase pattern up to row 16, which is our extra small size. So 16 is an even number. It will be the last increase, and it will put you at 24 stitches for your front piece, your front pieces on each side. For the remaining sizes, you're going to only be increasing the 1 stitch. So there will be no increases added in that first stitch. So it's important that you do follow along with the pattern so you don't get off track. There are some differences with some of the larger sizes as well. We're not going to continue to do increases on all of the sleeves, because if we keep with the same increase pattern, you'll end up with a much larger sleeve. Now, if yourself, your husband or spouse, partner, whoever you're making this for, if they do have larger arms and you need a larger size, you could continue increasing for their arm. But there are going to be some alterations for the larger sizes so we don't get as big of an increase in those sleeves as we work the yoke. So for this tutorial, I'm working on the large size. So I'm going to continue increasing my fronts up to row 16. Then I'm going to stop doing the increase on this front up to row 22. So I'm working up to row 22, and I am continuing to increase my sleeves as normal up to this point. So now what I also like to do is just mark the right side of my work, just so I can stay on track throughout the pattern. And the setup row is the right side. Our row 1 is the wrong side. Row 2 is the right side. So an even numbered row is the right side. Okay, so I just mark it, and then I just know it. I just like the look of this. It really doesn't matter if it switches, but I just like the look of this edge here. It's just a little bit easier when we're working around to do that final edging. So we're gonna make this the right side of our work. Okay, so you can see the yoke that I've worked here. I've continued to work up to 22 rows. So if you look at the chart, you should have 30 stitches across the front. The sleeve should be 50. And the back should be 64. So that's working up to row 22 for the large size. Now make sure as you're working past the large size, there are going to be sleeve sections that aren't going to do an increase. So make sure you follow through. It's really actually quite simple. Instead of doing 3 stitches in our increase, we're just doing 2. So if you see here, if I was just to do 2 stitches in my increase, leave a stitch for my front, and then put the marker here, I have not increased the back. You only get that increase when you do the 3rd stitch. So if you need to make any alterations even to the sleeves for the smaller sizes, you can always omit that 3rd stitch and then have your sleeve a little bit less. So take a look at the schematics. In the chart, I've given how large the arm is for each of the sizes in inches. Now, it is essential when you're looking at the measurements that I've included that your gauge is on track. So if your gauge is off, then this could differ. But if your gauge is correct, the measurements that I've included in the pattern will also be correct. So you can always tweak the pattern to fit the person that you're making it for. Okay, so doing less increases on that sleeve, or like I say, if the person has a larger arm or you have a larger arm and you needed to continue to go bigger with the bigger sizes, then you can continue increasing. You don't have to make this little modification. So what I've done at this point with this yoke is I have done a fit test on my husband because I'm making it for him. So I have done a little fit check. So I've put the piece across on him. I have checked the sleeves to make sure the sleeves are going to fit him. Now we are going to have a chain 4 here, so it will give. If it's looking like it's a little tight, then there is still going to be an extra 4 stitches added in, and you can always double check your fit again after you do this next step. So I always put it on to make sure, okay, this is going to fit him well. You can always go up to the next size if you think it's too small, or pull back if you think it's too big. So that's an important next step. I suggest doing that, doing a quick little fit test just to make sure that you are on track. So I also wanted to show you how you can see this gradual increase. So we have this gradual increase. You can see at row 16, we stopped the increases and see how it levels out and it's not increasing here anymore. It's gradually V'd. You see, we do have spacing because that is for our collar and our button up. So if it went all the way in, you would have a larger front than back, but we're going to keep them about the same. So we're going to have the ribbing and that's going to close in this gap. So now what we're going to do is separate the body and the sleeves. So this will be row 1 of that section of the pattern. I'm going to chain 1. You're now on the wrong side of your work. And we're going to work across in half double crochets. So simply just go across to the mark stitch and then I'll meet you up there. So I'm coming to the mark stitch and I'm going to choose for my mark stitches to be part of the body and not the sleeves. If you needed a little bit more room on your sleeves, you could choose to do it opposite, stop here, but I'm going to take that stitch as part of my body. So I'm going to go ahead, work a half double crochet in that stitch. The next section is the sleeve. I'm going to chain 4. So these are our underarm chains. And what you do is you just fold your piece like this. So this is your armhole. We're now going to work right into the marked stitch because I'm making the marked stitch part of the body. Work a half double. Then I'm going to work across half doubles all across my back. Okay, so I've worked across the back. Coming to the next marker, we're doing our half double crochet in the mark stitch. We're going to chain 4 for our next set of underarm chains. Fold the sleeve. We're coming over to this marker. Make sure you know exactly where you're placing the stitch when you remove it. Okay, so we're half double crocheting right into that stitch. Pull through, and now we're going across the front. Okay, so now if we count our stitches, we have 30 for each front, we have 64 for the back. We took all of the increased stitches, so that's an additional 4. And then, so that totals 128, but then we also have 4 chains here, 4 chains on the other side. So that's an additional 8 stitches. So our total is actually 136. And all this information is in the chart as well as the written pattern tells you the total stitches you should have for each size. So that's helpful. So now we have got it joined up. And if you want to do a fit check at this point, now that you have that extra chain on the underarm to make sure it fits comfortably on whoever you're making it for, we can then now continue. This is the really easy part. We're just going to start working our rows back and forth now. So I'm now back to my right side. And if you can fit check, it's good to do that before you move on because we still haven't worked up too much. Easy to make changes at this point. But once you get all of your body done, it's a lot more work to pull out if you're not happy with the fit. So what we'll do at this point is just start working back and forth in rows of half double crochet. And this is where you can also make alterations to the length based on the person you're making it for. I'm working this up for my husband and he is 6'2". So I will continue working the length and testing it on him so that he gets the right length for his body, but there'll also be that band added to the bottom. So that gives a little bit more length when we add the band, but you want to make sure that it's long enough, but also not too long. If the person you're making it for is a little bit shorter, you may not want to do as much length. This is what I love about a top-down piece. You can really easily customize it as you go by trying on the fit. And the same thing will be correct for the sleeves. You'll be able to alter the length of the sleeves based on the person you're making it for because we're just working them down in rows. So you can just keep going until you get the right fit. So I just wanted to show you here, once you get to the chain, you're just going to work on the one loop of the chain because when you work the sleeve, you'll be needing to get into the chain, the opposite side of that chain. So we're working across 4 half doubles for the chain and then continuing. Okay, so work across the back, work across these chains, finish it off, and then just keep going in rows until you have the length that you need. I will pop up directions for this specific cardigan and the length that I'm doing for my husband, and I'll put those up. That will pop up for you how many rows I end up doing. But I'm going to fit this to him as I go as well, so I'm going to make it that it's the perfect fit for his body. Okay, so I've been working away on the sweater and I've worked a total of 39 rows. So if we take a look at our sleeve opening, the more puffed up row here would be row 1. This would be row 2. And you can count down. If you haven't been keeping track, make sure you have 39. So what we'll be doing is ending on the wrong side because I want to work across the 40th row in single crochet. So I've already chained 1 and I'm going to work single crochets across. Okay, so I worked all the way across in single crochet. Now I'm going to change over to the smaller hook, which is my 5.5 millimeter. And we're going to begin working the join as you go ribbed band. So I'm going to start out with a chain of 9. We'll single crochet in the second chain from the hook and single crochet in each chain. Now we'll skip this stitch and you can slip stitch in the front loop only of the next 2 stitches. Now we'll turn, hold your work to the back. We're going to skip over the slip stitches, the 2 that we just made. Then you'll work single crochets through the back loop only. So you should have 8. It's always a good idea to count as you go. Chain 1 and turn. Work single crochets through the back loop of each stitch. Then we're going to slip stitch into the next 2. Now you have to make sure that you're not going back into the same stitch that we've already worked into. You want to go into the next 2 or you're going to end up with too many rows. You want the same number of rows worked as stitches. So we're skipping over that stitch. You can see it has a slip stitch in it and going through the front loops of the next 2. Turn, and then we're working through we're skipping the 2 slip stitches and working single crochets through the back loop only. And you're going to work this all the way across the bottom of the cardigan. Okay, so once you've worked all the way across, you're just going to fasten off, and then let's move over to working on our sleeves. So if you take a look at your work, you can see our row that puffs up a little bit more is worked on the wrong side, and this row here is worked on the right side. So we finished on a right side row. So that means we're going to join in to the wrong side so that as you continue working, it's still going to have this sort of raised and then lowered row look. And so it's just going to be consistent as we work it. So what we're going to do now is join our yarn down into the underarm area, and this way our seam will be to the inside down the center of the underarm. Okay, so we're going to join into the 3rd chain. So we're skipping the first 2 and joining into the 3rd, which will put us into the center because we'll make 2 stitches, and then you'll end with 2 stitches of that chain section, and it's going to keep our seam running down the center of the underarm. So chain 1, work a single crochet in the first chain space and the next chain space. So now if we take a look at our work, this is where our actual stitch starts, but we have this space in between. So if it's helpful, you can always mark the stitches of your sleeve. And for our large size, we have 50. So you can see that we have our first stitch, our last stitch, but then in between we have some gapping. If we just skip over and go right into this stitch, it's going to leave a little bit of a hole on either side. So just a little tip when you're working is just to work a tog under in this section, and it's only going to be 1 stitch, but it's going to just pull this extra fabric in. So what we're going to do is yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the first stitch now, pulling up a loop. So you have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pulling through. So I went with this. We could always go into this area. You can just play around and see what you think looks the best. But ultimately, we just want to pull this area in. Maybe that looks a little bit better. So you can play around. So what we're going to do is we're going to work around all of our stitches. So we have 50 on our sleeve, but our last one, we're going to do this tog again before we get into our chains, because we'll have 2 chains. So in total, we're going to end up with 54. 50 stitches for our sleeve plus the 4 chains, we'll have 54. So I'm going to work around. I'll meet you up on this side. So just continue working in half double crochets around. So now I've worked around 49. I'm coming to my last stitch. So let's again look at this. So here are our 2 chains at the underarm. This is the last stitch, and we have this spacing that goes in between. So what I'm going to do is yarn over. I'm going to go through the stitch. I'm going to go through this section, just pulling up a loop just to help it pull now together. So 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through, and then work a half double crochet in those last 2 chains. You should now have 54 stitches for this size. Chain 1 and turn. Okay, so you can see, because we went and worked on the wrong side, this row bumps up now, and it's all going to just flow consistently. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get right into our decrease pattern right away for our arm. So I'm going to go ahead and work a half double crochet in the first stitch. Then I'm going to do a half double crochet decrease across the next 2 stitches. I'm going to go through the stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop. So I now have 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pulling through all 4. I'm going to work a half double crochet in every stitch around until I reach my last 3 stitches, and then we'll work another decrease. So we'll reduce this round from 54 to 52 stitches. So I'm going to work this all the way around. I'm going to meet you back on the other side. Okay, so I've worked around 50 stitches. I have 3 stitches remaining, and you can see the last stitch is kind of tight in here, but that is a stitch. If you count, it's going to help you make sure you stay on track with this. So we're going to do a decrease across the next 2. And then 1 half double crochet in the last stitch. So I now have 52 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch to join, chain 1, turn, and then we're going to work 1 in every stitch around, and we're going to do this for 3 rounds. Now I want you to follow along with the decrease pattern for the size that you're working on. But for this pattern, we're going to work a decrease, then we're going to do 3 rounds without decreasing. We'll do a decrease, we'll do 3 more rounds without decreasing. And the pattern is going to flow in that manner. So again, it's a good idea to count as you work around. So we're going to work 3 rounds at 52 stitches. And we turn these rounds so that this pattern stays nice and consistent. Always turning your rounds too will help to keep that join line straight. If you worked in a continuous round in half double crochet, your join is going to curve significantly, but turning really helps to eliminate that. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to work my 3 rounds at 52 stitches, and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. And so I've done my 3 rounds at 52 stitches. We're going to do another decrease round. So I'm going to start with a half double crochet in the first stitch, and then I'm going to decrease across the next 2. I'll work all the way around to my last 3 stitches. Okay, so I've come to my last 3 stitches. I'm going to work another decrease, so yarn over, going through, pulling up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. Half double crochet in the last, slip stitch to join, I'll chain 1 and turn. So we now have 50 stitches, and I will work another 3 rounds at 50 stitches before I do another decrease. So we're going to continue in this decrease pattern until we have 32 stitches for the large size. So you're going to continue working in the same pattern I've shown you. So you'll do a decrease round, and then you'll do 3 rounds without decreasing. So in total, you're going to have, let me show you my other sleeve, 44 rounds for your sleeve. Now you can always adjust this if you're making it for someone with a longer arm or a shorter arm. Just simply adjust the amount of rounds you make. I just put it on my husband, made him try it on to make sure the length was good for his arm. So I have a total of 44. I'm ending on my right side row, and I have a total of 32 stitches. So if we look back here, I did my decrease at round 42, and then I have 2 rounds at the 32 stitch mark. If you wanted the cuff to be a little bit looser, you could always stop decreasing at round 38 and leave it at 34 stitches, but I went ahead and did the 1 more decrease to bring it down to 32. Then what we're going to do is finish off, so round 45 is going to be just a round of single crochet. Now this is going to set us up for our cuff. So I'm going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch around for a total of 32. Also want to mention a little tip for counting. If you're struggling to see where you started again with the sleeve, you can always go back to the top. For this size, I'm going to have 22 plus my sleeve as I count down is going to have 44. So in total 66, and I double checked counting down mine just to make sure that I was on track. And then the single crochet row is our final round. So I'm going to go ahead and work around my 32 stitches, and then I'm going to meet you back up. I'm going to show you how to do the cuff. Okay, so I've worked around. I'm going to switch over to my smaller hook. I'm going to slip stitch in the first single crochet to join. And I'm going to chain out 9 for the cuff. So I'm going to keep the band the same as what we did for the bottom of the cardigan. Now this is where you could always alter the length. Again, like you could do it shorter, you could do it bigger. You could do 10 stitches if you want to add a little bit more length to your cuff, but I'm going to stick consistent with the bottom band and chain out a total of 9 so that I have 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain. So now we'll skip that first stitch. We're going to slip stitch into the next two. Turn our work. We're going to skip over the slip stitches and then work a single crochet in the back loop of each stitch. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, chain 1 and turn, single crochet through the back loop only, 8 stitches, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Look at our work here, so make sure you don't go back into this same stitch. We're going to go into the next two, and we're going to work this all the way around so that we have a total of 32 rows, or the same number of rows as you have stitches worked. So I'll go ahead and complete this now off camera, and then I will meet you back up to show you how to slip stitch it together. Okay, so once we get all the way around, you should be ending up at the top. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch this together. Now, I like to just fold my cuff so that I have my right sides facing. You could always use a yarn needle to sew this, but I'm just going to continue with a slip stitch. So go through this side, go through the first stitch, and we're going to slip stitch that to join. And you're going to just continue going through each stitch. So you should have 8. We'll just pull this through, and then we can weave in this tail. If you want to wait until you try it on, you can always do that, because it's easier to pull back your work if you haven't woven in those tails. So I'm going to leave that for now. I will double check it with my husband to make sure that it fits well before I finish that off. Okay, so next we're going to work on our collar. Make sure that you are on the right side. I like keeping my stitch marker here so that I stay on track. So we're going to join with our yarn and our smaller hook. So this is going to be our lower right side. So we're going to join right into the ribbing. And what we're going to do is get our base row done for our ribbing. So we're going to work a single crochet all the way across, ending over on our left side. So single crochet in each stitch across the band. I'm also going to crochet over this tail, so we should have 8. And then for our base row, 9. Then we're going to get into our half double crochet rows. So in order for us to have a nice evenly spread single crochet stitches, we want to crochet 3 stitches for every 2 rows. And that will kind of make it be nice and even. It shouldn't be too bunchy or too tight. So 1, 2, 3 across the first 2. 1, 2, 3 across the next 2. And it should look like this, so it should be nice and smooth. And you're just going to continue that all the way. Now when you get to your foundation row, you'll just be working 1 for every stitch as you go across. Then again, work across your half double crochet rows, and then 1 in every stitch when you get to the band. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We can fasten off when we get over here. We'll join back on, and then we're going to work the collar. So I've worked all the way across. I'm going to fasten off because I want to join on to the right side for this section. Now you could always do the same as what I did for the band and work in the front loop, and then it gives it a nice effect, but I'm just gonna go ahead and join over. Now what you wanna do though is also mark out for buttonholes. Okay, so I'm thinking I will use about 5 for this cardigan. So what you want to do is you can just space them out I don't want them too high up, so I'm thinking somewhere in this area. And the buttonholes go on the left side for a men's. I usually do them on the right side for women's. It doesn't really matter, but if we want to go with the traditional method, we would put our buttonholes on the left side. Okay, so I've marked off my buttonholes. So what I've done is I've counted up 4 stitches. I've marked the 4th stitch, and that puts the buttonhole roughly at the center of my button. The button is fairly large. I'm just going to give it a measure for you so you can see what size I'm using. So let's go with, so it's about 35 millimeters, this button. Then I counted 14 stitches, marked the 15th, 14, marked the 15th, 14, marked the 15th, and so on. So I have a total of 5 for this cardigan. So now what we're going to do is we'll work the band all the way around, and when you get to your buttonholes, you'll work a buttonhole row. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you, because I have such a ways to go before I get over to this side, I will show you how a buttonhole row is worked on this side, but let's get started. So we'll get started with the band. I'm going to join into the first stitch, and the band will be 8 stitches, or the collar will be the same as the band, which is 8 stitches. So we're going to chain out 9. We'll single crochet in the second chain from the hook and each chain so that we have 8 stitches. Now we're going to skip this first stitch that we have slip stitched into or joined into, and then we're going to work slip stitches through the back loop only of the next two. And we'll turn, skip the slip stitches we just made, and then one single crochet through the back loop. So this is just the way I've already shown you, working these join as you go bands. The only difference with the collar is going to be working those buttonholes. And they really are really simple and easy to work. But let's get a few rows of the collar worked. So chain one and turn. Okay, so there's 8. Now you can see we've slip stitched here, so we're going to go in the back loop of the next 2, and then we'll continue. So now, if we come to a mark stitch and it is the first next stitch, we're going to make the buttonhole row as we work back up to the edge. If we come and the marker is in the second stitch, you'll work your buttonhole row coming back down towards the edge of the cardigan. So the buttonhole row is worked the same, how you skip and chain, how you chain and skip stitches. It just depends where you come to it. So if it's here, it's on the first row. If it's here, it's on the second row coming back down. So let's go ahead and work a buttonhole row, assuming that the marker is in this first stitch. So I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 as normal. We're going to turn, and the buttonhole row will be worked single crochet in the back loop only of the first 3, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and then single crochet in the back loop of the next 3. So if you need a larger buttonhole, you can always adjust how many spaces that you have skipped. So just chain, if you need the buttonhole smaller, you would just chain 1, skip 1 stitch. If you wanted it bigger, you would chain 3, skip 3 stitches. But chaining 2 is a good size for this button. It's going to still be fairly snug, not too loose, because you want to make sure that it does stay buttoned up. Now we'll chain 1 and turn. So your next row after a buttonhole row is worked like this. So we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the first 3, and then in the chain space you're going to work 2 single crochet and then continue with single crochet in each of the next 3. So then your buttonhole's made, and you can always give it a check with your button at this point. Make sure that the button fits, you can get it through. And then if you need to make any adjustments, you can before you move on. But I'm going to pull this back because I won't be working the buttonholes until I get to the markers. So you're going to go ahead, work all the way around with your collar, buttonholes at your marker, and then we'll meet back up. We're just going to sew the buttons on the collar band opposite the buttonholes. Okay, so I finished working the collar with our buttonholes, and I've sewn on the buttons opposite the buttonholes. And this is the finished look. So we have a total of 5 buttons. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all our new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below the video for the yarn links as well as the pattern link. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.